Elon Musk is the world's wealthiest individual, worth more than $400 billion at the time that I am recording. He is also in charge of US government efficiency. But here is the thing. Is he actually qualified for that job? Now, most people would say he's worth that much money. You have to be an absolute genius to do that. He can run a car company. He can run a rocket company. He can run a social media company. But are all of those things a qualification to run the government? Yes or no? And does having that much money automatically make you a genius? Like, is there a dollar amount where you go from average intelligence to super genius? Yes or no? That is what we are here to truly discuss. Let's go ahead and break it down. Now, this is going to impact you as an investor and a consumer, and probably in more ways than you actually think, and that is where this conversation is going to lie. Now, as we break this down, we're going to set the scene, as we always do, give you a little bit of background history, and I'm going to do the very difficult task of setting as much politics aside as possible, all right? Because once you do that, it gets bad, all right? So let's start by setting the scene and give you a little background history for me, in case you may not know, all right? So my background is in economics. I got a master's degree, bachelor's degree, all that kind of stuff. But my professional background was as a financial advisor. I managed over $140 million. I say that because I haven't just come in contact with one millionaire. I've come in contact with dozens of millionaires. I can tell you firsthand, the person with $20 million is not 10 times smarter than the person with $2 million. The person with 200,000 is not a whole much smarter than the person with 20,000. Why would you say that? Sometimes it's just a factor of time. And that's just it. They're doing the exact same thing. They're investing, they're following the process. It could be, I invested in Apple at one time and they invested in Apple 20 years ago. That's how they got the money. There is no intelligence gap there. That was just it. There was no genius behind that. It's just, I invested at one time, you just started yesterday, and that's the difference between those two numbers. There's no true, genius between that. Now, if you are lucky to hit $1 billion, or in Elon Musk's case, or any billionaire's case, they don't make you dumb. Okay, I don't think you can hit $1 billion and be dumb. Let me make that clear. You gotta have some intelligence to not spend it all on stupid things. So you do have to have some intelligence to retain it, to navigate the tax code, to hire people around you to retain that wealth and make the right moves. And you have to be smart enough to run a car company the way that he has, to run a space company. I don't think he's run Twitter/X well, and we have evidence to show that, but he ain't dumb, okay? We know that. But are those skills the right skills to make government more efficient? That is interesting. But before we get into that true question, the other thing is this. When it comes to genius, right, or qualifications, I think we need to truly discuss that number, right? We tend to assign, right, whether it's $1 billion or $1 million or whatever it is, once you hit a certain mark, you're a certified genius. Well, what number is that? If you truly think that, because Bernard Arnault, or however you want to pronounce that, was at one point the world's richest individual. Most people, a lot of people actually, don't actually know that name. He's a French billionaire worth roughly $180 billion today. If you want to round up, you can say that's half of Elon Musk's wealth currently. You wouldn't say that he's half as smart as Elon Musk, would you? You wouldn't say that he can come over here and run half of the country and make the government half as efficient as Elon Musk just because he has half the net worth. You wouldn't say that is how that works. But also, interestingly enough, Bernard doesn't have the same, let's call it, fanboy, cultish following. There's something about Elon Musk specifically that has that following, even before he bought Twitter, even before he could change to X, that he has, that I feel like most billionaires don't have. But even so, take LeBron James, who's also a billionaire. I don't see many people calling him, outside of a basketball genius, even though LeBron has made lots of amazing business moves. No one's clamoring for him to take that and run government efficiency or run a space company and do tons of other things. Same thing for Oprah, right? Oprah's great at what she does, and there are a lot of people who love Oprah, but no one is doing that exact same thing and saying that because she's worth $2 or $3 billion that you are now an absolute genius and you can go and do X, Y, and Z. What is that number if, because you can run a business that you're now bestowed that you can do any and everything? I don't believe that a certain dollar amount gives you an immense wealth, or I don't believe a dollar amount, because it does give you wealth, obviously. I don't believe that it gives you a great amount of intelligence. Sometimes it's just time. Sometimes it can be an inheritance, or the market just took off, right? And that is where the majority of his wealth is coming from. So that is the first thing. Like, what is that dollar amount if that is what we want to believe? Because there are a bunch of people who have great businesses that you right now don't know, don't think of, and don't support in the same way that you do Elon Musk. So what is it about him that you are a fanboy of, that is the reason why you support him versus any other billionaire that is on that list? Because y'all not pushing Warren Buffett to do the exact same thing, even though he's been on that list for longer than most of us have been alive. All right, so that's the first one. But also, I would argue that this is the biggest piece here. Should you run the government like a business? And I think this is the one where most Americans specifically don't truly understand. So when we talk about government efficiency, especially when Elon Musk talks about government efficiency, taking the politics out of it, what he is trying to do is go through and cut costs. Does the U.S. government spend a bunch of money on things we should not? The answer is yes. There are many spots in which we could cut costs, especially given the amount of debt that we are in. That answer is yes. Now, notice why I didn't say where that money was. You can decide based on your politics where you think that money is. I'm not going to go there. Okay? So I'm leaving that out. So there are some spaces where waste is. The thing is, though, because we are a government and not a business, those two things aren't actually equal. And that is the issue. In a business, your job is to make profits. And that profit, whether you are the CEO or the investor, you are rewarded for it. So for example, if I'm Elon Musk, I'm running Tesla, if I cut the most expensive thing, which is what? People. Unfortunately, it is people. If I start to cut that back and I do layoffs, almost every time, we talked about this in 2021, we talked about this especially in 2022, when Meta and Google and I was going to say Facebook and Amazon started to cut back on staff, all the staff they hired when they needed it during the labor crunch, during the pandemic, when they started to cut those people because the stock was down, they immediately started doing layoffs. And what happened? The stock started to jump. They cut cost. That is what they do to make things more efficient. They cut down on the workforce, they cut down on cost, and the stock goes up. That is what makes those CEOs a little bit richer, right? They get bonuses based on how the stock performs. And sometimes you can make a business more efficient. They are rewarded by profits. And that's fine for a business. And then sometimes it's not. Take Twitter, for example, though it is private. I think we can all say by now it's been more than a year. X/Twitter has not been better. It has broken. It's gotten real gross over there for a lot more reasons. It's bad, right? He cut, what was it, 80% of the staff or whatever the number was. He cut a lot of important pieces, and it has not worked for the better. When you do that for a government, not everything is supposed to be profitable. For example, college. We often complain about college. What is the problem with college? Yes, it costs too much, but they run colleges like a what? They run colleges like a business, and it should not run like a business. It should be run like a school, like a college, where they're not supposed to make money off of you. That's not what we want to go to college for. You want to go to college to get the training and stuff you need to go and get a job. Instead, what happens in college is that they load you up with courses that you might not need. They charge you a whole bunch of money, and then they don't really care whether or not you go and get the job you actually need or not. Am I right? And then you get sent off. And that's why you have, no shade to anybody, University of Phoenix. It's why you have a bunch of shady universities out there. It's why you have a bunch of scam colleges out there, because all they're doing is why you have for-profit colleges now. to get people in the door, sell them a degree. So you have degrees that don't pay, right? They do all that stuff to get you out the door and just send you out there because the colleges are trying to make money versus just being a true nonprofit and not trying to make money. That is why. And when we go to healthcare and the military and all these other things, if you start to cut all that stuff and try to make everything a business and try to privatize, which means, hey, we don't want to do this service, we can send it to a business because we think they can run it better, then everything is going to be run as a business. And I don't think things like, Medicare, military, all that stuff should be business. That can make some pretty bad issues, because once we start to see that, we, the American people, start to get gamed into certain systems, and that's not necessarily the best thing. One last example I'm going to give you is the CFPB. That is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. One thing that he tweeted out, that he said, RIP to the CFPB. This is the same industry that in 2016, it was Wells Fargo. That, I don't know if y'all remember, I'm old enough to remember when Wells Fargo was creating those fake accounts to get bonuses. Remember, Wells Fargo is here to do what? Make profits. Think about this for a sec, okay? Think about it. I'm on a rant, but think about this. You almost never see credit unions in scandals. Almost never. Like, when was the last time you hear Bank of America in a scandal, Chase Bank in a scandal, Wells Fargo always in a scandal every other 6 days? You almost never see a credit union scandal. Why is that? They're really more of a not-for-profit industry. They're not there to squeeze every penny out of you. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Chase, they're there to make money. So they will do anything to make as much money as possible. So in 2016, they were caught by the CFPB for creating fake accounts in customers' names to hit bonus targets to make more money. The CFPB that found them and caught them. The CFPB has done a bunch of things to limit bad fees, to help you get out of certain subscription services, to make it easier for you to just click and get out of subscription services, gym memberships, stuff like that. They are there to truly protect consumers. He just wants to get rid of that. To replace it with what? I don't know. Or is it just something that he feels is too expensive and just wants to cut out altogether? Well, without that, who's going to protect people like us? And what is the cost to us, the consumer? Whether it costs, let's say, $10 billion or whatever it is, that does save us from another Wells Fargo incident. The whole reason that the CFPB existed was because of what happened during the Great Recession in 2007 and 2008, because of bad mortgages and what those banks did to regular people who did not understand what they were signing up for. That is why it was there, and we could run back into the situation because of the CFPB. And when you think like a business person, the CFPB doesn't actually make any money. It doesn't have a profit line. It doesn't have any products. They just step in and say, hey, this is wrong. We're going to sue this person, or we're going to sue this entity. And that's it. It's just what they do. They're not supposed to sell products. That's not what they do. But a business person doesn't see it that way. And I don't think everything should be run as a business. So is he qualified? I don't think so. I don't think it is necessarily good for him to have carte blanche over everything. Can he introduce a few good things? Yeah, maybe so. But in the 2 weeks or however long it's been, there have been some pretty disturbing and, rough things in terms of stopping student loans altogether, and then starting student loans altogether. We've got a bunch of farmers that have already lost $2 billion in funding. And those businesses are already hurt. So we'll see where it goes as a whole, but you typically don't want a business person, especially from the outside, to immediately jump and run all of this. I'm also a bit concerned as to, I know he clearly has a lot of capacity, but how are you now efficiently, truly running? I know he has a team, but how are you also running SpaceX and whatever is going on at X and Tesla and however much of the U.S. government, all at the same time, and doing them all well? You got to be stretched thin at this point in time. And a lot of that doesn't truly make a whole lot of sense. So I would love to hear what y'all think in the comments, because I know a lot of people who just wave Elon flags no matter what and don't admit that he might be flawed. Flawed by a lot. Now, I try to play it as straight down the middle, didn't mention no hand gestures, okay, that he did. So I tried to play it as through the middle as I could. But I would definitely love to hear your thoughts on what you think he should or should not be doing. Also, all this does affect you because the things that he may or may not cut can absolutely impact the stock market, because the regulations that we may or may not have, the departments that we may or may not have, could impact what taxes we do pay, what regulations will play a factor for some of these companies, and what they can and cannot produce. And that is going to impact the bottom line for some of these companies and the companies that we do invest in. If you want to learn more about the stock market and everything in between, you can check out these videos right here.